Are you ready to give up your peaceful life on the mainland and go live on a remote island? But not for the blue sea, white sand, or luxury resorts. For the side of island life you've never seen. Amid the snow and ice, people have to use dog sleds to travel between remote communities. In some places, people have to build stone walls to block the ocean wind so they can grow crops. In other places, thick layers of grass are placed on rooftops to keep homes warm against the cold ocean winds. This isn't the script of a survival movie. This is the reality on islands that the media rarely talks about. The journeys ahead will reveal how people survive in some of the most isolated places in the world. Bermuda is only about 22 square miles in size, more than 650 miles off the coast of North Carolina. The entire island has no rivers or lakes, and it has almost no natural resources. Across the hillsides are white-roofed houses. Every time it rains, water runs along the limestone grooves and flows into storage tanks. Off the coast, hundreds of shipwrecks rest quietly on the sea floor, reminding people how dangerous these waters are. But instead of fearing the sea, the people of Bermuda turned it into an advantage. The island gradually became a stop along international shipping routes. Selling maritime insurance brought in enormous wealth. Even as it prospered, Bermuda never lost its identity. Private vehicles are restricted. Pink buses are part of everyday life on the island. No house is allowed to be built taller than the town church. Dressed in colorful costumes, the tradition of Gombe dancing is still kept alive. Without rich natural resources, Bermuda has still built a place where people truly feel at home. In the middle of the North Atlantic, the Faroe Islands are just a tiny, isolated green dot. They are surrounded by towering cliffs that plunge straight into the dark ocean. Thick fog covers the mountains for up to 270 days a year. Ocean waves roar against the rugged cliffs. Despite the harsh environment, thousands of people still quietly make their lives on these islands. Colorful wooden houses stand close together to withstand the bitter cold. Many roofs are covered with fresh grass to help keep the homes warm. Life on the islands is peaceful and slow. People mainly make a living by raising sheep and fishing. To overcome the isolation, people cut through mountains and built massive tunnels deep beneath the ocean. Here, isolation does not mean loneliness, it means connection. A community that stands together against the challenges of nature. More than 140 islands are surrounded by clear blue water, white sandy beaches, and colorful coral reefs. Okinawa shines like a hidden gem, hundreds of nautical miles from Kyushu. Leaving behind the fast pace of the mainland, the island takes you back to centuries-old Ryukyu villages. Red tiled roofs covered with moss sit beneath ancient trees. For generations, more than 1 million islanders have made their living by growing sugarcane and fishing. Despite its peaceful beauty, this island chain sits right in the path of typhoons. On average, 10 to 15 major typhoons pass through every year. After enduring countless changes, the storms seem to be nothing more than a test of the islanders' resilience. The sound of the Sanshin still drifts slowly across the vast ocean. If you ever have the chance, come and experience a way of life completely separate from mainland Japan. In some places, the Marshall Islands are so narrow that you can see the ocean on both sides after just a few minutes of walking. On one side is a calm lagoon, as smooth as a mirror. On the other is an endless ocean. Homes, schools, and narrow roads sit only about 7 feet above sea level. Just beneath the crystal clear water, coral reefs appear and disappear from view. They form natural walls where schools of fish weave their way through. These reefs absorb the force of the waves and protect the islands. Besides coral reefs, the ocean also provides abundant fish, helping people make a living from every fishing trip. But it also brings a threat. Salt water is slowly seeping into the freshwater supply. High tides regularly flood the coastal roads. Sandy shores continue to erode. If these coral reefs disappear, the people of the Marshall Islands will lose the ground they stand on. Discovered in 1502, St. Helena has remained isolated from the outside world ever since. It is actually a volcanic island, 1,200 miles from the mainland. Steep rocky mountains divide the island into narrow valleys. Temperatures here stay between 17 and 24 degrees Celsius. The mountaintops are covered with lush cloud forests. Nestled between two cliffs is Jamestown, the island's only town. More than 4,000 people still live in its red-roofed houses. St. Helena was where Napoleon Bonaparte lived in exile until his death. It is also the home of Jonathan, the 194-year-old tortoise, the world's oldest living land animal. In 2017, the island's first airport was built, but strong winds and rugged terrain have kept flights very limited. Most supplies still have to arrive by supply ship from the mainland. The island has tried to open itself to the modern world, yet its geography has continued to limit it for hundreds of years. Fiji is often known for its blue beaches and luxury resorts, but that's only a very small part of this island nation made up of 333 islands. Most visitors don't realize that on remote islands like Lau and Kadavu, life still follows a traditional rhythm. Here, the land is owned by the community. Almost everyone knows each other and shares responsibility for the village. Sunrise on the islands begins with wooden boats leaving the shore. Sunlight stretches across rows of coconut trees and fields of taro and cassava. Traditional bure houses with thatched roofs can still be seen. Traditional ceremonies have been preserved through generations. The villages are surrounded by tropical rainforests and massive coral reefs. Today, many of the islands are beginning to develop small-scale community tourism. Here, you can experience local island life while helping preserve island culture and protect nature for future generations. The Lofoten Islands were formed by steep rocky peaks rising straight out of the sea. Along the bays are small fishing villages. Red wooden houses are built directly on the rocks. The wooden stilts supporting them are driven straight into the icy water. The people here make their living from fishing. Their main source of income comes from Arctic cod. The fish are brought ashore and hung across huge wooden racks. Winds from the Norwegian Sea dry each batch over the course of several months. When winter arrives, snow covers the rooftops and mountainsides. The sun barely appears for weeks. The entire island is wrapped in the polar night. In the freezing darkness, only the faint yellow lights from small houses remain. Tokelau consists of 3 small coral islands in the South Pacific: Atafu, Whakaofo, and Nukunonu. To reach Tokelau, you first have to fly to Samoa. Then you continue another 320 miles by sea for 24 to 30 hours. The lives of the island's 1,500 people are shaped by the ocean. They begin each day by fishing for tuna. When the tide goes out, many families search the coral reefs for fish, crabs, octopus, and shellfish. In daily life, family, church, and community activities play a central role. However, the island community is gradually shrinking. More and more young people are moving to New Zealand to study and find work. At the same time, every high tide and major storm threatens these 3 coral islands, which rise only a few feet above sea level. Roads lined with hydrangeas are the first thing that welcomes you when you arrive in the Azores. Few would expect a world created by volcanoes in the middle of the Atlantic to be this gentle. Emerald green lakes rest quietly inside ancient volcanic craters. Green pastures stretch across the hillsides. Lush native forests and bright white waterfalls are scattered throughout the valleys. In Furnas, dozens of geothermal vents release heat day and night. Beneath them, people bury large pots in the ground to slowly cook cozido naturally over several hours. On the small rocky islands, quiet villages face the sea. Fishing and dairy farming have supported life here for generations. Meanwhile, whale watching tours have become an important source of income for many coastal communities. If you're looking for an island that's remote enough to escape the noise, yet still easy to reach, the Azores are the place for you. There is no harbor, so the ship has to anchor offshore. From there, people and supplies are brought to land by small boats. That's everyday life on Pitcairn Island. The entire island has only about 50 residents. They all live in the island's only village, Adamstown. Most of them are descendants of the HMS Bounty mutineers and the Tahitian women who came here in the late 18th century. After many generations, quite a few families are still related by blood. Because the community is so small, one person often takes on many roles, from fishing to repairing houses or operating boats. To reduce their dependence on supply ships, people grow their own bananas and raise goats. Today, Pitcairn welcomes visitors to stay in local homes. Not for luxury, but to experience the slow pace of life in one of the most isolated communities in the Pacific. Life in Kiribati always begins and ends with the rhythm of the tides. When the tide goes out, fishermen paddle to the coral reefs to fish. Fishing, growing coconuts, and producing copra have supported most of the population for generations. When the tide comes in, the sea becomes the route connecting distant communities. On these strips of land that rise only a few feet above the water, fresh water is a precious resource. People mainly collect rainwater and rely on the thin freshwater layer beneath the coral. At the center of every village, the traditional Manayaba meeting house is where people gather to discuss community matters, hold celebrations, and preserve their identity. But beyond the village, the sea is quietly moving in. Sandy shores are eroding. Farmland is shrinking. Many families have had to build seawalls or move their homes farther inland. Every morning, you may wake up to find the rising sea right at your doorstep. On the map, Nauru still looks like a tropical island in the middle of the Pacific. But once you step inland, the landscape is completely different. About 90% of the island's interior has been mined for phosphate for more than a century. All that's left is a jagged limestone landscape filled with thousands of sharp rock pinnacles. The ground has been torn apart, making it almost impossible to farm or build. As a result, the entire population of more than 10,000 people lives along a narrow coastal strip surrounding the island. Within just a few miles are homes, schools, a hospital, and a modern airport. These two extremes create a striking visual contrast. A community lives along the edge of an island that has been almost completely mined by people themselves. Despite its modern appearance, life here is far from easy. There is very little farmland. Fresh water mainly depends on rainwater and desalination plants. Most food also has to be imported. On Christmas Island, people are not the ones who decide the rhythm of life. Every year, after the first seasonal rains, around 40 to 50 million red crabs leave the forest and make their way to the sea to breed. They cover the roads. They spill into yards. They disrupt everyday life. After the long journey, many crabs die from exhaustion or are swept away by the waves. Long stretches of red crab bodies line the shore. Once the migration season ends, the island returns to its peaceful rhythm. Christmas Island covers only about 52 square miles. More than 60% of it is national park. Tropical rainforests blanket the steep coastal cliffs. Most residents live on a small strip of land along the coast. They make a living through phosphate mining, public services, ecotourism, and fishing. Most importantly, they have learned to adapt to nature's cycles and life in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Rapa Nui is one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world. Nearly the entire population lives in the town of Hangaroa. Fishing boats return to the harbor every day. Rapa Nui culture has been passed down through generations with traditional dances, drum beats, and festivals. The island is best known for its nearly 1,000 massive moai statues. Most were carved from compressed volcanic tuff at the Rano Raraku volcanic crater. Most stand about 13 feet tall and weigh nearly 14 tons. Almost all of the statues share the same facial expression. They all face away from the sea. Some wear red stone top knots, believed to represent the ruling class. Others still lie scattered across the hillside. To this day, there is still no definite answer. How did the ancient Rapa Nui people move and raise these stone figures weighing dozens of tons? The mystery behind the Moai statues continues to challenge archaeologists around the world. In the middle of the Svalbard archipelago lies Longyearbyen, a town less than 800 miles from the North Pole. During winter, the sun disappears for months. Darkness covers the town. Snow and glaciers blanket the surrounding mountains. Despite the freezing landscape, around 2,500 people still live and work here. It is a fully functioning community with hotels, schools, and an airport. Polar bears on the island are considered the greatest danger. That's why every expedition is carefully organized with experienced guides. Many people also carry rifles in case they encounter these predators. In summer, inflatable boats weave between floating icebergs. You can get close to deep blue glacier walls and experience the almost complete silence of the Arctic Ocean. In winter, the sky lights up with the northern lights, creating an almost unbelievable view. In one of the most isolated places on Earth, warm yellow lights still glow inside small wooden homes. Heimaey is the most populated island in the Vestmannaeyjar archipelago. The small town sits quietly by the sea. At its foot stands Eldfell volcano. Rows of houses, a busy fishing harbour, and lush green cliffs. Despite its peaceful appearance, few people realize this entire community is built on volcanic lava. In 1973, Eldfell erupted right next to the residential area. Bright red lava slowly advanced toward the town and its harbour. Nearly all of the island's more than 5,000 residents had to evacuate. Many homes were buried beneath ash and hot volcanic rock. When the volcano finally quieted down, people returned. They dug their homes out of the ash, rebuilt the harbour, and started over on the very island that had nearly been destroyed. Today, the fishing harbour remains the island's economic centre. Across Heimaey, signs of the eruption are still everywhere. Black lava fields stretch across the landscape, weaving between houses and narrow roads. Eldfell still towers behind the town, a constant reminder of the power of nature. Signs of volcanic activity are everywhere. From the basalt columns lining the coast to massive lava tubes deep underground. Together, they have shaped Jeju into an island unlike any other. Every day, the Heimaey quietly enter the sea without scuba tanks. They rely only on diving goggles, fins, and a single breath to gather abalone, sea urchins, and octopus. Many of them are over 70 years old, yet they still dive on a regular basis. After every dive, their signature whistling sound echoes across the water as they catch their breath before diving again. Today, the Heimaey tradition has been recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Even so, very few young people are choosing to continue this dangerous way of life. Every time another Heimaey leaves the sea, another piece of Jeju's centuries-old memory disappears with her. Rows of colorful palafitos stand along the water's edge. Each one is supported by wooden stilts driven deep into the bay. When the tide comes in, the water quietly flows beneath the houses. When it goes out, mud flats and rows of stilts emerge, revealing a way of life that follows the rhythm of the tides. Rain falls over Chiloé almost all year round. Mist wraps around the evergreen forests. Waterfalls pour through valleys covered in moss and ferns. The air always feels cool and damp. The sea supports most of the community here. At sunrise, small boats head out to catch seafood. By evening, the harbour comes alive as fish and shellfish are brought ashore. But this way of life depends entirely on the weather, the tides, and the ferries connecting the islands to the mainland. Amid the rain, the sea, and the isolation, Chiloé has held on to its slow pace of life. People don't fight nature. They work together and quietly learn how to live with it. Lord Howe is home to a community of only about 380 people. At the same time, the number of visitors allowed to stay on the island is limited to around 400. Because of that, the island has never been overwhelmed by hotels, traffic, or crowded beaches. A crystal-clear lagoon lies beside a white sandy beach. Behind it, the twin peaks of Mount Gower and Mount Lidgebird rise above the palm forest. The water is so clear you can see coral just beneath the surface. The entire island feels peaceful, as if it has been separated from the rest of the world. But that beauty is carefully protected. New construction is restricted. Motor vehicles are limited. Most people get around on foot or by bicycle. Tourism is also kept small to reduce pressure on the coral reefs, freshwater supply, and ecosystem. Lord Howe looks like paradise, but it isn't open without limits. The island community has chosen slower development to preserve the untouched beauty that many other islands have already lost. The colourful fishing villages of Fogo Island sit quietly along the North Atlantic coast. Cold winds sweep across weathered wooden piers. Every spring, icebergs drifting from Greenland silently pass by the island. For generations, cod supported every family on the island. But as fish stocks declined, fishing could no longer sustain the community. Many people left in search of a new life. The coastal villages gradually became quieter. The people who stayed decided to take a different path. Craft workshops began to open, art found its way into old seaside houses, community tourism slowly created new jobs. Local culture itself became the foundation that allowed the island to keep going. Today, the sea is no longer the island's only source of life. But it is still present in every harbour, every fishing boat, and in the memories of those who chose to stay. "60 miles from the mainland, Haida Gwaii is where ancient temperate rainforest meets the wild Pacific Ocean. Giant cedar trees are covered in moss. Fog regularly blankets the rocky coastline. The landscape has remained almost unchanged for centuries. This is the homeland of the Haida people. Indigenous communities have lived across these islands for thousands of years. Wood carving, fishing, and totem pole carving have been passed down through generations. Hidden deep within the forest are ancient Haida villages that were abandoned long ago. The houses have slowly disappeared with time. Only the totem poles remain, standing quietly among the trees. The Haida do not restore them as they decay. They allow the wood to return to the earth. As part of the natural cycle, their ancestors always respected. There is no airport connecting Palmerston to the rest of the world. The only way to get here is by yacht or the occasional cargo ship crossing the Pacific. Offshore, supplies are transferred to small boats to cross the coral reef surrounding the island. Only a few dozen people live here year-round. Most are descendants of the same family that settled the island more than 160 years ago. This small community remains closely connected in the middle of the vast ocean. Life revolves around the lagoon, the coconut palms, and the fish in the surrounding sea. Rainwater is collected for everyday use. Every supply ship brings food, fuel, and medicine for the entire island. Once the ship disappears beyond the horizon, Palmerston returns to its quiet rhythm. The ocean both sustains the people and isolates them from the rest of the world. Here, distance is measured not only in nautical miles, but also in the weeks between each visit from the outside world. At the foot of Yasur volcano, traditional villages have existed for generations. Every day, people cross fields of volcanic ash to farm, fish, and care for the coconut palms along the coast. The ground occasionally trembles, reminding everyone that this island has never truly been at peace. As night falls, Yasur comes alive. Columns of glowing red lava shoot into the sky. Hot rocks burst into the air before falling back onto the mountainside. Explosions echo across the island. The red glow lights up the rooftops and the surrounding forest. Despite its power, many communities on the island still preserve the traditional custom way of life. Homes are built from wood and palm leaves. Ceremonies, dances, and festivals are still held according to the customs of their ancestors. Life goes on as usual at the foot of the volcano. Every eruption doesn't just light up the sky. It has become a familiar part of everyday life on the island. Thousands of stone walls divide the Aran Islands into countless small fields like a maze. Between them are narrow country roads, low stone houses, and green pastures stretching to the sea. Even though the islands feel remote, all it takes is a ferry ride to get there. Few people realize that the soil beneath those fields isn't entirely natural. Over generations, people cleared stones from the ground, stacked them into windbreak walls, then spread sand and seaweed over the land to create farmland. Every field is the result of centuries of hard work. The sea still sets the rhythm of life on the island. On rough days, ferry services may be cancelled. People continue to fish and preserve a way of life that has lasted for centuries. Irish is still spoken in many homes as part of everyday life. Every stone wall, every country road, and every ocean wind tells the story of how people quietly turned an island of bare rock into a place they call home. There are no white sandy beaches or rows of coconut palms like on tropical islands. El Hierro is defined by towering basalt cliffs. Mountainsides covered in ancient lava and quiet stone villages. As the smallest and least visited island, it has preserved a rare sense of untouched nature. Farther inland grow the Sabina juniper trees. Strong winds, blowing almost year-round, have bent their trunks close to the ground. Some have taken hundreds of years to reach the shapes they have today. At the foot of the sea cliffs are small fishing villages. Fishing boats leave the harbour before sunrise. Life moves at a slow pace across the rugged landscape shaped by ancient volcanoes. Natural pools formed by cooled lava have also become places that generations of local people have grown up with. The island has used its strong winds and rugged terrain to generate most of its electricity. When the wind is strong, excess power is used to pump water into a reservoir high above. When the wind dies down, that water flows back down to generate electricity, helping this small community in the Atlantic become less dependent on the mainland. Not every island stops changing after it's formed. Réunion is a place where the ground is still shifting beneath people's feet. Creole villages sit between three massive volcanic cirques. They are surrounded by towering cliffs, high waterfalls, and deep valleys carved into the landscape. In the southeast, Piton de la Fournaise remains one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Lava flows have repeatedly poured down its slopes. Some have even crossed the coastal road before cooling into fields of black basalt. With every eruption, the island gains a little more land. The landscape is constantly changing. Layer upon layer of old lava has created a rugged, barren terrain. At the foot of the volcano, everyday life goes on. People grow sugarcane, vanilla, and fish along the coast. In the Mafate Cirque, there are no roads for cars. People travel only by mountain trails or by helicopter when supplies need to be delivered. More than 500 miles from New Zealand, Chatham and Pitt Islands are home to around 600 year-round residents. Open grasslands stretch all the way to the windy coastline. Fishing boats head out to sea every day. Seafood is the lifeblood of the community. Moriori culture lives on through ceremonies, art, and traditions preserved across generations. But most fuel, machinery, and many daily necessities still have to come by sea from the mainland. Every cargo ship brings supplies for the entire island group. Just a few days of bad weather can disrupt everyday life. Farther away lies Pitt Island, where only a few dozen people live. It's such a small community that almost everyone knows each other. The school, the farms, and the harbour are the centre of daily life. Saba is actually the peak of a volcano rising straight out of the sea. The entire island has only 4 small villages, 1 harbour, and a single runway for commercial flights. To land here, planes have only a few seconds to touch down between towering cliffs and the ocean. The steep terrain forces homes to cling to the mountainsides. Narrow roads, hugging the cliffs, are the main routes connecting the villages. Despite its isolation, Saba has small hotels, world-famous dive sites, and a network of hiking trails through the cloud forest. There are no giant resorts or crowded cruise ships. The island focuses on small-scale tourism to preserve its natural landscape. Only a little over 2,000 people live on the island year-round. Before the 1940s, there were no roads for cars. People traveled only along footpaths carved into the mountainsides. The island's first road was built by cutting directly into the cliffs. Even today, it remains the lifeline connecting the entire community. The colorful villages of Santo Antão cling to steep mountainsides. Below them are deep valleys and the open ocean. Between them lie green valleys covered with terraced fields. People have reclaimed and used every piece of land they could. They grow sugarcane, bananas, coffee, and other food crops. For centuries, volcanic mountains divided the island into isolated communities. People could travel only along narrow trails carved into the cliffs. Many of those paths are still used today. Santo Antão has no airport. Everyone and everything must arrive by ferry through Porto Novo before continuing across the mountains. The steep climbs and endless switchbacks make reaching this island a real challenge. Uummannaq Island in western Greenland is known for its twin-peaked, heart-shaped mountain, rising nearly 3,840 feet above the sea. At its base sit bright red, yellow, and blue houses against a blanket of snow and ice. Around the island, icebergs drift quietly through the fjord. When winter arrives, the sea freezes into natural roads. Dog sled teams replace boats. They carry Inuit people across the frozen sea for hunting and transporting supplies. People here have relied on fishing and hunting for generations. Most of their food comes from the icy waters surrounding the island. Daily life changes with the seasons as the ice forms and melts. In a world almost completely covered by snow and ice, this small community continues to survive using traditions that have been part of Arctic life for centuries. There was a time when every resident of Tristan da Cunha left the island. A volcanic eruption in 1961 forced more than 200 people to evacuate to the United Kingdom. Yet just 2 years later, they chose to return and rebuild their lives beneath Queen Mary's Peak. Tristan da Cunha has no airport. The only way to reach it is by ship from South Africa, a journey of about a week. Everyone on the island lives in a single village called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. People mainly make a living from rock lobster fishing, livestock farming, and small-scale agriculture. Food, fuel, and other supplies arrive on only 4 supply ships each year. Many families have lived here for generations. Children attend school on the island from elementary through high school. But when they turn 18, they face the biggest question of their lives. Will they leave home to continue their education thousands of miles away, or will they choose to stay on the island? Every island you've seen on this journey has its own story. Some are isolated by the sea. Some are divided by mountains. Others live by the rhythm of ice, wind, and volcanoes. But they all show one thing: the limits of human life are sometimes defined not by nature, but by the way we choose to adapt to it. Which island would you want to visit the most? And how many days do you think you could live there? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join us as we explore more incredible places in the journeys ahead.